All right. So today will be day 4 of our energy systems unit 5 unit. Uh, we will be having our test review. We'll also be going over just a little bit of information on how you would link photosynthesis to cellular respiration, which also ties into the review, and that'll be pretty short as well. So we need to make sure that we know that photosynthesis and cellular respiration, we need to make sure we view those as a complementary process because they help each other out. And what we mean by that is we depend upon each other. Animals depend upon plants. Plants depend upon animals. It's just a full circle of life if you're into the Lion King. So this is one way that you could think of it. So right here we have a consumer. This consumer is going to put out vital nutrients that the tree is going to need. Is going as it whenever it dies. Of course, um, its molecules is going to be broken down into a fertilizer basically, and then can actually make the ground more fertile. It also puts off carbon dioxide, which the plant's going to need. Um, it's going to add a lot of needed nitrogen to the soil, not only whenever it dies and decays, but also when it sorry about that phone ring. Um, but also whenever it uses the restroom, it'll produce it as well. Um, and of course, the cow needs the plant. Of course, the cow needs it because it produces food for it. That's that glucose that it's storing up in it. The cow can get some of that energy as well as breathing in the oxygen. So this right here is a great image. I was so happy that I found this on Google Images. I believe is where I found this at. Uh, and so the reason why I like this one is because it so accurately shows how the products and the reactants and how much they need each other. So at the top here, we see the chloroplast, and the arrow that's coming out of the chloroplast and that's going toward the mitochondria at the bottom, right there where you see C6H12O6 plus O. Well, that is the products of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis produces glucose and oxygen. And in return, that's actually what the mitochondria need. The mitochondria needs that glucose and oxygen in order for it to produce that carbon dioxide and water, which of course is what the chloroplast needs. So this is further showing that complementary process between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. That does bring me to one thing that I wanted to mention. A lot of students in the past seem to think that plants, yes, they undergo photosynthesis, so that means animals undergo cellular respiration. Animals do undergo cellular respiration, but so do plants. Plants also have the mitochondria in them as well. It's just that they're producing their own food, and that food gets taken to it. That glucose, some of that glucose gets taken to it for that plant to use for energy or just to store eventually. So please make sure we know that plants also have mitochondria. That's what's producing the energy that they need in order to live. All right. And glucose is just stored chemical energy. It takes the mitochondria to break that thing apart to really produce a bunch of ATP. So a little bit of review here. So first thing is we're going to review the ATP molecule. Mitochondria is the one that primarily produces the ATP molecule. The three parts: adenine, ribose, the sugar, and three phosphate groups. Remember that T stands for triphosphate, meaning three phosphate groups. The nitrogen base is adenine. How does ATP release energy? By breaking off that third phosphate group. When you're looking at an image of it, the third phosphate group is the last phosphate group. It's the phosphate group closest to the outside. The reason why I keep harping on that is because students will oftentimes think that it's the very first one that comes up toward the middle of the image. And that's not the way it happens, it's the outside one. After ATP releases its energy, what does it become? It becomes ADP, where it has to go back to the mitochondria to pick up that phosphorus again so that it can be recycled as ATP. Photosynthesis, remember, the biggest thing you need to know about photosynthesis, about this whole process, you need to know chemical formula. That means reactants and products. You need to know where it occurs. So that means also you need to know the two parts of photosynthesis, and that would be the light dependent and light independent reactions. Same thing as photosynthesis. You need to know where it occurs, products and reactants. And then after that, we have this high energy electron, and that really takes place not only in this one, but it also is carried over into cellular respiration. On this next slide, I have the image from that other one, and I just put it down here so that if you didn't want to have to go back and look at it in the notes, you could have it here to work on being able to label this. Not only being able to label it, but being able to know this image will really help you out in knowing the whole process. It'll also help you out with the light dependent reactions and the independent reaction. It'll help you out with knowing products and reactants of both. So truly, knowing this image can very well help you out on all the questions that deal with photosynthesis. Anaerobic respiration. So on both sets, I have the information about cellular respiration because you're going to have to know what cellular respiration is and the chemical equation. You're going to have to know the products and reactants, okay? You'll also need to know the main key points about anaerobic, how much ATP is produced, where does glycolysis take place at, what is produced at the end of glycolysis, what will happen to the product if no oxygen is available. That is fermentation and the two types of fermentation. Please take a look back at your notes on that material. This unit really, in my opinion, is a lot of recall on the facts. So please make sure you look back at that material. And then, of course, we have aerobic respiration. Again, knowing what cellular respiration is, chemical equation, products and reactants. Here, knowing the amount of what happens to those electrons being taken to the NAD takes it to the electron carrier, electron transport chain. The amount of ATP is produced. And then, of course, knowing the difference between aerobic and anaerobic. And really dealing with these two past slides, dealing with the anaerobic review and the aerobic review, a lot of those questions can be answered right here with this slide, comparing the two. A lot of those can be answered there. You might just need to look up some of the details to it, like knowing that glycolysis is the breakdown of glucose that produces 2 molecules of pyruvate. Well, if oxygen is available, we go to the Krebs cycle. What's produced in the Krebs cycle? ATP and NADH. If oxygen isn't available, it goes to it ferments. You either have alcoholic and lactic acid, being able to differentiate between those. Knowing that anaerobic respiration only occurs in the cytoplasm, while aerobic, dealing with all three steps, would be the cytoplasm and the mitochondria, because glycolysis, no matter what, is dealing with the cytoplasm there. So I hope that review helped you out. If you have any questions, please email me. Make sure that you are going over your videos, your practice questions, and your quizzes questions that could really help you become proficient in this material. Good luck on your test.